Welcome to Before the Score, episode 22, double peace signs. I'm Steve Samra. I hope everybody's doing well this week. Pablo Hernandez, you want to give us a little update on your coronavirus?
Thank you, Steve, and everybody. Welcome back to Before the Score, episode number 22. We got the big 2-2. Honestly, I feel fine, man. I don't feel sick at all. Honestly, the only thing that I still notice about, symptom-wise is my sense of taste is still not 100%, but I do kind of taste. I just can't smell, bro. And I don't know if it's possible to not have the virus and still have symptoms, or have the virus and not have symptoms. So if it were up to me, I think I'm perfectly fine. But as of yesterday, I got retested again. So hopefully, I'm cleared and I can just go back to living my normal life. Because I don't know, man, it's just been, I've been home from work, I want to say like 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm just ready to get back into the normal swing of things. I'm ready to get back to some sense of normality. So that's basically an update on myself. What about you guys? Steve, I see you're growing out the beard.
Of course, growing out the beard, letting it all grow, the flow, everything. So I'm kind of hoping to get back in the barbershop pretty soon. See, Pablo's got the mustache going, which is a interesting choice.
That's how you know the quarantine's really hitting me. My haircut looked crazy. I look like a wolf. So I was like, you know what? If I'm going to go bald again, I'm going to be home anyway, so nobody can see my mustache. So let me just see if the mustache thing works. But honestly, I look like my father. So I don't know.
Now, honestly, I'm a big fan of the mustache look. I rocked it a little bit this summer. I thought it was good. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this, but
I don't know. I like the bald head and the mustache. I think that's a good look for him.
It's a good look, right?
It's a good look if you can pull it off. If you can't pull it off and you try to force a mustache or a bald head, like, it's going to look really bad. But I mean, I think you did a pretty good job, Pablo.
Well, I think if my mustache were thicker, because my mustache is there, but it's not thick. If it were thick, like not Raleigh Fingers thick or Don Mattingly thick, I think it would look really nice. I also don't want to look like I have 3 eyebrows on my face,
It's a hell of a way to put it. Yeah, let's stop talking about mustaches, though, and get into the sports aspect of the podcast. And the biggest news was the NFL schedule got released. It's why we didn't record last night. It's why we're here today, and we're releasing a day late. Andrew, the Buccaneers have 5 primetime games. They didn't have 5 in the last 15 years. What are your thoughts on the Bucs being the hot ticket this year?
I mean, that just shows you the Tom Brady effect. I mean, the Jets every year have like 2 at max. So for a team like the Buccaneers, who, when was the last time they've done anything, get 5, you said, primetime games just from Tom Brady? Like, they can go 5-11 and they can like immediately regret ever getting that many primetime games. But I mean, if the Bucs are rolling with Brady, then those are going to be must-watch games. Like, people are going to tune in just to watch Brady on a new team. So I mean, I get why they did it.
Yeah, either way, people are going to watch just because it's Brady on a new team. No one knows what to expect. Not saying that the Buccaneers are going to be a juggernaut in this league. They could be a 500 team and still make the playoffs, depending on how the NFC shakes out. I was intrigued to see the Bills got 4 primetime games, which is a lot for the Bills. And, with the Bills and the Jets and Dolphins, Patriots, we don't know who the front runner in that division is going to be. So 4 primetime games for the Bills was a big shock to me.
Well, yeah, guys, I don't mean to interrupt you, Steve. Absolutely, Andrew, I have to piggyback on what you had to say. It is definitely the Tom Brady effect. Tom Brady, he equals ratings. Tom Brady, whether you guys want to admit it or not, as long as he is still in the league, he is the face of the NFL, regardless of the success that Patrick Mahomes has had in his brief stint. But for a team like the Buccaneers, right, a team that really has never done anything, I think this is huge for them. It'll give them some much needed exposure. A lot of young guys that have on that team, they probably aren't used to being in front of that big stage, in front of that primetime atmosphere, primetime time slot. So I think this is huge for them.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to see players like Mike Evans, who is one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best. He's right up there with DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion. I'd put him in the top 3 or 4. they are going to get a lot of exposure from this, and that's why Brady will be helping out. You'll see Gronk, he's made for TV. You knew once he was on the Buccaneers, their primetime games were going to tick up. The Buccaneers should be good this year. I mean, let's see it on the field first, but I hope they're not this year's Cleveland Browns, because the Browns last year got so many primetime games, and man, that was rough to watch. So you guys
are they eligible for Hard Knocks?
The Buccaneers or the Browns?
Yeah, the Buccaneers. They didn't get a new coach. They didn't make the playoffs, so they should be eligible, shouldn't they?
I think so. I think they're eligible.
That would be pretty awesome to see Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and that Buccaneers team be on Hard Knocks.
If they're eligible, it would suck if this is the year they're not allowed to do Hard Knocks because of the whole coronavirus.
Well, yeah,
because this would be the perfect year to have Hard Knocks with the Buccaneers. But no way, I don't think they can do it. They were just on 2 years ago.
Oh, that was 2 years ago. Yeah.
They wasted them.
Between period. Yeah, really. Now looking back at it.
Yeah. That's so terrible. That wasn't even a good season of Hard Knocks.
Terrible. Either. Come on, you got Jameis Winston on HBO.
He wasn't even that much on it. The big star was Gerald McCoy.
Yeah, right. The Browns one was good though.
Yeah, Browns one was good. The Jets won a couple years back. That was the best.
That was a while back. Yeah. I was like 09.
With Rex Ryan, that was the best year of Hard Knocks.
I mean, it was good. Like I didn't mind it with the Raiders either.
Yeah, the Raiders. Well, Antonio Brown, you had to watch that. So
yeah, they just don't have a facility. Like that just didn't make any sense to me. That they were playing like where I don't even know where the hell they were playing. At least now that they'll have better facilities, they should have had Hard Knocks for the Raiders this year. So Hard Knocks keeps getting it wrong, I guess.
Well, speaking of the Raiders, they have 4 primetime games, which all they did to deserve that was move to Las Vegas. What are your thoughts on the Raiders having that many primetime games?
Go ahead.
I mean, like, I get it because it's a new stadium, like brand new stadium. Like Raiders, like they draw decently well. Gruden's like a character, but the team, like the Raiders team, is just like one of the most boring teams in the NFL. Like their offense is like slow and like they don't take deep shots. They have a terrible defense. Like they're not like a flashy team at all. Like, and they're built to kind of be that flashy team. Just like the way they play just doesn't kind of match a bunch of primetime games. So I don't know.
Well, they kind of had to do it because you look at a team moving out of a city, you got to add fans somewhere. So putting them in primetime spots will have the opportunity of more people to be exposed to the team and eventually root for it's a brand new team in essence. So the play on the field, though, however, I mean, I like Gruden.
Did we lose him? I think we lost him.
I think we lost him.
He likes Gruden. That's what I got from that one.
Well, Dan, continue.
Oh, my internet connection is unstable. I don't know. Where'd I call that out?
The last thing you said was you like Gruden.
Oh, I like Gruden, but like the team, it's just not a good team yet. Their draft was weird. Like they're just not a great team to put on primetime spot. But like I just said, it makes sense for them to try to get more publicity through that time slot. Yeah.
So obviously the whole schedule was released last night. All our favorite teams. We all have some pretty interesting games coming up. What's your favorite game on the schedule for this year for your favorite team? Who wants to take it first?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I think this is a no-brainer for me. Friday day football on Christmas Day for the Vikings. I don't think they've had a Friday game in maybe over 10 years now. So that's obviously the ratings are going to be insane on Christmas Day. And it's against the Saints. The Vikings and Saints have had a rivalry these last few years. And the thing I just don't get is, like, other than the Minneapolis Miracle game, the Vikings are always at the Dome. Like, they're never at home. Like, I would have loved to see them at home in this game, playing in Minnesota. And then there's another game on the schedule in prime time against the Seahawks, and they're away. And every time we play the Seahawks, it's ridiculous. We're always in Seattle.
You always lose, too.
Yeah, we always lose in Seattle, and it's only by, like, a touchdown or less. Like, if you put us at home against the Seahawks on prime time, I'd feel a lot better about that game. But knowing that they play the Seahawks at the link in prime time, I just see that as a loss.
Yeah. I mean, the Jets schedule is weird. Like, it starts off, like, really tough. Like, you got the Bills on the road, and they're like, the front runner for the AFC East right now. And then you got the Niners, arguably, like, one of the top 3 teams in football at home the very next week. So that's a very strong possibility to start off 0-2. But like the one game that really sticks out is week 9, Patriots Monday night. Because like last year, the Patriots Monday night game was the worst game I've watched since the fumble game. So I mean, this is the year that you got to beat New England in prime time. Like you have to beat New England in prime time. Like if they don't, there's gonna be some big questions on Adam Gase, big questions on Sam Darnold. If they can't even beat Jarrett Stidham in week 9, and they're still gonna be in it, it's not gonna be a meaningless game. Prime time, got to exercise those demons.
Is that in Jet Life?
It's in Jet Life.
Jet Life. Okay.
Yeah, let's hope that Sam Darnold's not seeing ghosts this year against the Patriots. That was where that famous line came from. Yeah, for my Giants, I'm excited for this year. I like this schedule a lot. I really hope fans are able to go because it's not every year you get to open up at home on Monday Night Football. That is awesome. I'm happy about that. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 of the most legendary franchises in the whole NFL. That is a great opening game. First game, Monday Night Football. I don't know if I can get better than that. Of course, I'm excited for Odell Beckham Jr. to come back to New York in Week 15. I'm sure the storylines in that game will be running rampant. And Week 16, the Giants go to Baltimore. If the Giants are in it, that could be a fun game. I would take the trip to Baltimore if we're still in it. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, yeah, those Steelers fans really travel. When I was working the Jets game last year, it was very prevalent that the Steelers, the fans are insane. You know, it was almost a Steelers crowd for that game. Not that the Jets were injured or anything, and the Steelers were. So that's why that happened. But the same thing last year, the Bills opened up week 1 and 2 in MetLife. Now the Browns, I think it's week 13 and week 14 or 14 and 15 or something like that. They played the Giants and Jets back-to-back in MetLife. So that should be pretty interesting for them. And having 2 away games in the same stadium within a week, that really helps your team because you don't got to move. You stay in the same spot. So for the Browns, for both of your teams, it's going to be a big test.
They also did that with the 49ers as well because the 49ers play the Jets week 2 and they stay in New York to play us week 3. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. We kind of get the raw deal there because they'll probably be here for 2 weeks. So hopefully we can catch them on a bad week. But I think they'll be well rested. That's a good team. I hope we can surprise them. I like this Giants schedule. I think there's some room for them to really have some upsets. We get to play the Rams really early in the season in that beautiful new stadium. Don't play Dallas till week 5. I don't even know when the last time that happened was. One thing I did notice about the Giants schedule I don't like is that they have 5 of 6 of their games are division games. They go Dallas, Washington, Philly, Tampa Bay, Washington, Philly. That's a tough stretch right there. And you mix in Tom Brady and the Buccaneers at Monday Night Football, which I think will be Eli Manning's retirement game. That's a tough stretch right there. That's going to make or break their season.
Yeah, I'm always concerned. Like the first thing I look at the schedule is always where the division matchups are. And for the Vikings, week 1 against the Packers is so weird to me. That like having a week 1, I don't really like the idea of having a week 1 division opponent. I think that's very stupid. I think you should be playing a team that's not in your division and have it later into the season. This is the first time in history the Vikings are going to be playing the Packers week 1. The schedule, I look at the Viking schedule, it's so goofy. Like, it's so weird. There's like a mid-stretch, like week 11 or so. They have 3 home games in a row, but then they're away like 3 of their last 4. They have a week 7 bye. They're playing a division opponent week 1. They only have 2 primetime games. I just looked at this Viking schedule and I was just like, wow, that's just really weird. So I'm going to be very skeptical of this season, how they perform.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the Vikings only had 2 primetime games, same as the Jets, 1 less than the Giants. One thing about the Jets schedule I thought was weird is they literally play the Dolphins, then have a bye week, then they play the Dolphins again. So in 3 weeks, they play Adam Gase's former team twice. I don't get why would the schedule makers do that? I have no clue, but it would be pretty bad to see the Jets lose both those games. I think that could cause some stir for firing of Adam Gase.
Hey, Steve.
If they lose those 2 games and they're like under 500, he's getting canned.
Yeah.
Can I address the elephant in the room here? We're assuming that these games are going to be played, right? Let's just say this whole dilemma is still going on once the NFL season is set to begin. What are they going to do? Are they going to learn from what the other leagues have done in terms of other sports. Are they going to just play with no fans? Are they going to push back the season? Do they have enough time to kind of contemplate, their actions here? Because we think that this is going to be done and over with, this whole COVID-19 thing. But at the end of the day, we don't know. So do you think there is a possibility that the season does not get started on time?
I think it's a possibility, but shout out Rutgers University. They just developed the first at-home saliva test for the coronavirus that's being mass produced that you will be able to buy in stores. So I think that'll be really keen in helping keep people with the virus out of society. And I think that'll really help sports be able to flourish. And hopefully fans will be able to be at the games. I think best case scenario, probably no fans for the first month or two, honestly. I think I really can't see beginning of September, they're allowing fans into arenas. I'd be surprised, but it's the NFL. Money talks. I don't think they really care, honestly. I think you'll see fans in some of the smaller, less affected cities like Cincinnati or Cleveland, but New Jersey, New York, you're not going to see fans at MetLife at least week one.
I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked here. There are still people here that don't even think that this whole virus thing, they think it's fake. They think it's a farce, which I don't understand how people could be so arrogant and so negligent when you talk about, this world dilemma that's going on right now. So I do think that the NFL, them watching what the other sports have been doing, they should already have an idea. They should already know what they're doing. Roger Goodell and all his businessmen should know that, all right, we're going to do it this way. And I can almost guarantee you that I think it's going to be more than 1 or 2 months, more than 1 or 2 months before we see any type of fans here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to January 1st, because as of right now, we want to get things under control before we open America back up.
Yeah, the biggest problem I see with the NFL and this whole situation is you're not going to have rookie mini camps. You're not going to have mini camps. They're going to have training camp on time, but you look at joint practices, you might even see preseason games being reduced. The play on the field for the first few weeks is just not going to be what it has been in these past years. Teams are going to get out pretty slow, and it's going to be on coaching and coaching staff to make sure their players are ready to get going this season, because if you have an advantage in that aspect, you could really make a run in the beginning of the season and really, for the course of the rest of the season. And if you don't have fans in attendance too, we don't know what happens with the second wave. If you have fans at the beginning of the season and maybe they have to cut it out mid-season, it's going to be very interesting to see, because this season's going to be unlike any other we've seen. And hopefully, if there is a second wave, hopefully it's after the Super Bowl, because it would be terrible to see if that second wave started when the playoffs are going on. And, then they're like out of options and have to cut the season. That would just be terrible.
Well, the thing is, like, by the time the NFL season starts, it'll be over 6 months since, like, this has been, like, an issue. And, like, they've had so much time to think about this. So if it's September, they should have, like, at least 3-4 different alternatives where they can either go business as usual, they can have no fans in attendance, they can have alternate locations. Like, they have to have, like a ton of plans. They're a $1 billion corporation. Like, they have to have these things in place. It's something that, like, the NHL and the NBA didn't have the luxury of having 6 months to prepare for. So there's no excuse to not at least get the season in. So I don't know how the season's going to go. I don't know how they're going to go about it, fans or no fans, but I think I can say almost 100% that there will be football played this season.
The NFL also has the luxury of waiting. They get to see these sports leagues readjust, restart, and see what mistakes and what they get right with what they're doing with coronavirus. The NBA, NHL, NASCAR, I actually think they're going to learn the most from NASCAR, because NASCAR has the most similar personnel to football. These guys are right up against each other. There are so many people involved in letting a NASCAR race go on that it's most similar in terms of personnel to football. So I really think that NASCAR, they're going to learn a lot from the way NASCAR handles business in the next couple of weeks, because they're going to have 4 races in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to learn a lot about testing. We're going to learn a lot about how they handle their personnel on the track and how spaced out everybody is. The sport of NASCAR is going to be so important to the NFL restarting their league. We're going to all be watching. I think we're going to have a lot of interesting eyes on the product. So let's move on to our next point of business outside of football, outside of the schedule, is Odell Beckham Jr. said that he thinks this year is going to be his best year. Now, it seems like this is a yearly tradition that Odell says this. Pablo, you are the doctor who diagnosed him with his own disease. What do you think of these comments by Odell?
Well, pre-COVID-19, pre-coronavirus, there was something that I self-diagnosed as Odell Beckhamitis. And Odell Beckham Jr., we all know he is a phenomenal talent. He is somebody that, a franchise would be blessed and lucky to even have drafted somebody like this. We all understand that. But when you look at a guy like Odell Beckham, he is somebody who loves to run his mouth. Now, I understand that every year you want to be the best. Every year you want to win. Every game that you play should be better than your last. So I do like that. I do like that point of view, from what he's saying. But at the end of the day, if he's going to say that and not perform and not live up to hype, or to complain or to bash his teammates, or to say, oh, I'm not winning because the team's no good, I'm not winning because we need more players, he should be ashamed of himself. And he really needs to check himself, because we know he can be one of the greats. But if he doesn't put that together, it's going to be all for nothing. He needs to put his talents together, and he needs to not do so much talking, but let his on-the-field actions do the talking.
There's two sides of this, because you look at what the Browns had problems with last year, and it was mainly quarterback play and offensive line, and they go hand in hand. So what do? They sign Jack Conklin, start at right tackle. They draft Jedrick Wills, number 10 overall. He's either in your left or right tackle, probably left tackle because Conklin's more experienced at right tackle. But regardless, that offensive line is going to be way improved from what it was last year. And that whole offense is going to click a lot better. I think they got a lot better play caller in Kevin Stefanski than Freddie Kitchens was. So that's a coaching upgrade, offensive line upgrade. That's only Baker, almost physically can't have a worse year than he did last year with how this offense is built. You look at what the Vikings did with Stefanski last year. They're built very similar. I don't even know, the Browns might have a better offensive line than the Vikings did last year, but they have a similar running back and Nick Chubb. They have stars at receiver and Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. They're built. The talent is there. And Stefanski, he knows how to use these receivers. So Odell should be a lot more efficient and put up better numbers than last year. But on the flip side of it, Stefanski doesn't really feature receivers like a air raid offense kind of. So it's going to be a lot more balanced, a lot more running. So the numbers might not be as flashy as Odell wants, but he's definitely going to have a better year than he did last year if he stays healthy.
I agree with everything you said up until the last point. Stefanski, yes. When Stefanski was the offensive coordinator of the Vikings, you saw a lot of 2 tight end sets, doing the play action, making sure the running backs were the first ones, targeted. But that was more, in my opinion, the Gary Kubiak effect, working with the Vikings, and Mike Zimmer of how he wanted to draw out his offense. I think Kevin Stefanski is a very good play caller. And going to the Cleveland Browns as a head coach, he's way more experienced than Freddie Kitchens was ever. Freddie Kitchens was a running back coach a year before he got upgraded to being a head coach. Kevin Stefanski was in the Vikings organization for over 12 years. He has an extreme amount of success with the Vikings and being a play caller and eventually learning how to run a team. So the Browns are going to be structured so much better. It was a great hire by them. I'm mad that Stefanski had to leave because I loved him a lot. But he's going to be he's a great hire for the Cleveland Browns. And going to the Baker Mayfield argument, how could he not get better? You look at the offensive line. That was their biggest problem last year. There's no question about that. Baker did have a bad year. I can't deny that. So everything's going to get better for Odell around him. So it's up to Odell at this point to put the work in, because there was some instances last season where it wasn't Baker Mayfield's fault. It was Odell's fault. He was running wrong routes. He was dropping balls. So it's going to work hand in hand. But eventually what I see from this Browns team is a very good team on paper, like we have the last 2 years. But eventually this is going to work out, and Odell's going to have a monster year next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, Beckham last season was also dealing with an onslaught of injuries.
Yep.
He was injured in just about everywhere you could be injured last year. He had injuries in places I didn't even know existed. So I was surprised to see he even had as good of a year as he did last year, because he did still have a pretty decent year for a guy featured in an offense that was not that great last season, in a really, really trying year, because Freddie Kitchens, you knew he was going to be out the door as soon as Myles Garrett hit Mason Rudolph in the head with a helmet. His writing was on the wall. Freddie Kitchens, I hope he can redeem himself more, because he's with the Giants now. But I do think Odell will have a good year. I would target him to fantasy if I have to. I do agree with Andrew, though. The main Cleveland Browns person I'm targeting is Nick Chubb. He's going to have an awesome year. They invested in the offensive line heavily with Conklin and Jedrick Wills. I think the Browns' offense should be really good. And they brought in Austin Hooper. So the odd man out might be David Njoku. So I think if we might see him get traded to a team this offseason before training camp starts. That's all we got for football this week. I know Dan wants to hit on the UFC, so let's get into the UFC 249, because I'm excited to finally watch some MMA for the first time in months.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. And when you look at this card from top to bottom, it's just a monster card. Like, I can't get over that they're putting a card like this with no fans in attendance. But on the flip side of it, this may be one of their biggest pay-per-views ever. There's guys that are known. To me, as a UFC fan, this is a stacked card. But on the, as a amateur person watching it, or a person that doesn't really watch the UFC and want to tune in to see some sports, they're not going to know many names on this card. So I'm gonna be interested to see what the pay-per-view numbers are on it. But going to the card itself, you look at the undercard. Match 9 is Jacare Souza. Like, Jacare was a middleweight contender for so long, and he's the 9th fight. You look at a match 7th, Fabricio Werdum, a former heavyweight champion. He hasn't fought in 2 years, and he's back. And that's match 7. At match 6, we just saw the last pay-per-view was McGregor-Cerrone. Match 6, Cerrone doesn't even make the main card. So that to me shows how stacked this card's going to be. Cerrone facing Anthony Showtime Pettis. That's going to be a very interesting fight between two fighters who have just been on the downswings of their career and really need a win to get it going. And then you go to match 5. Greg Hardy somehow makes the main card, but I guess for people that don't watch the UFC, that's what they want to see. They want to see Greg Hardy fight. So very interesting by Dana White of stacking so many great, awesome fights on this, especially in the lower part where it's going to be free to watch on ESPN Plus. So this card I am so excited for.
Yeah, this card is stacked, as you said. These are some great fights, and I'm really excited for this. I think Dana White was smart to kind of stack this card. As you said, there'll be so many eyes on it. It's all that ESPN can talk about right now, and of course they're going to push the UFC. They own the UFC, so they're going to push the UFC. And then you have stuff for hardcore UFC fans, but you also got stuff for the casual UFC fan, because the casual UFC fan, like Pablo in that top left corner, he knows Cowboy Cerrone. He knows he might not know Greg Hardy, but Andrew knows Greg Hardy. You know, these are guys that will make you want to tune in. Dominic Cruz, that's a guy 2 years ago, he was on top of the world. Everybody knows his story. This guy, he's going to and he's getting a title fight. Could be, Dana White was on ESPN today saying it could be one of the biggest upsets ever if he wins. Ferguson, that guy is just entertaining to watch in the ring. He'll make some new fans with this fight. I'm excited. I think this will be fun. This will be that's what we need right now. It'll be fun. I like seeing Verdum back. He dominated the heavyweight division for so long. I like seeing Ngannou on the card. I think he'll have a good fight. That guy is a young superstar. This is a great card.
Well, I actually do have an interesting point and something that a lot of people aren't talking about. This is going to be a historic night. This is something obviously we've never seen before in our lifetime. So in order, to be on a card like this, I understand it's so stacked, but it's kind of like an honor. You will forever remember that you were on that first card during this whole crisis. So I think this is awesome. Every episode, and I feel like I'm saying it, I feel like I keep saying it. To get back to some sense of normality, this is something that's needed. And I agree that there being a stacked card is a brilliant idea. because there's really nothing to do. A lot of people are home. A lot of people are going to purchase the pay-per-view, and they're going to sit down and they're going to watch this. And this is something to gain a lot of viewership, a lot of exposure to a casual fan who, let's say like myself or somebody else, who's not really too familiar with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They might want to tune in more often now. So I think this is awesome to get some eyes on the product.
Yeah, I just want to break down a few more of these fights on the main card because, I mean, I haven't even gotten to the main card yet. And after the Greg Hardy fight is Jeremy Stevens versus Calvin Kattar. That's going to be a great fight. Calvin Kattar is actually a minus 260 favorite, which I find very intriguing since Calvin Kattar has fought a lot of guys, but hasn't fought in the top level competitions of a Jeremy Stevens kind of guy. He just fought Zabit and lost, who Zabit is an up and coming star that we're going to see in the UFC. And Jeremy Stevens is a plus 210 dog. I see a lot of value in Jeremy Stevens right there, and I could see that as a great upset. Going to match 3, we have Francis Ngannou and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Ngannou minus 280 to Rozenstruik 230 plus 230. Rozenstruik is a guy that has been extremely successful, has an amazing come up. He's 10-0. He's been knocking out some pretty prevalent guys in the UFC. So Ngannou's going to have a very weird matchup. But for me, Francis Ngannou is on another level than these heavyweights other than Stipe Miocic. He fought Stipe Miocic 2 years ago, and he got destroyed. And ever since then, this guy has just fought tooth and nail in every fight and has just made himself such a better athlete. And I see this as a very good possibility for Francis to put himself into that heavyweight championship picture. I know there was news about Stipe Miocic just saying that he's interested in a Daniel Cormier 3 fight, which I would love to see. And the winner of that has to fight Francis Ngannou, in my opinion. Real quick, Henry Cejudo, Dominic Cruz. You were just alluding to Dominic Cruz hasn't fought in 2 or 3 years or whatever. I mean, his MCL, ACL, TCL, RCL, whatever in his knee has been just everything has been shattered in this guy's knee. Cejudo, the triple champ, he likes to call himself, winning in the flyweight division, winning in the bantamweight division, and winning a UFC or Olympic gold medal in wrestling. This is Danny D's lock of the year here in Henry Cejudo. There is no way Dominic Cruz is going to win this fight. Henry Cejudo is on another level compared to Dominic Cruz right now. Cruz, you talk about ring rust. Cruz, 3 years he hasn't fought in the UFC. That's a extremely long period for him not to fight. When he was fighting, he was on top of the world. But this is a different challenge that he has in Henry Cejudo. It's going to be an amazing fight for maybe 2 rounds, and Cejudo should end them early.
I just can't stand Cejudo. He's not my cup of tea. So I'm hoping Dominic Cruz can come up with the Rocky Balboa-esque upset.
It's going to have to be.
And then Ferguson Gaethje, who you got?
This is fight of the year. There's to people that don't know who Tony Ferguson is, who don't know who Justin Gaethje is, this is going to be the best fight you've ever seen in your life. These two guys no one's backing down in this fight. No one's going to be too scared of the moment. These guys are just on the attack all fight. It's going to be the most exciting fight you've ever seen. Justin Gaethje is a knockout artist. He does some of the craziest stuff you ever seen in the UFC. And then crazier is Tony Ferguson. This guy's sprawling all over the floor. He has blood everywhere dripping from his face, but he still comes forward and he still gets you in some Darce chokes, or he gets you on the ground, submits you. He likes to play from his back. Unbelievable fight. And I won't count out Justin Gaethje here, but I have to give the nod to Tony Ferguson. It's going to be a close fight, but I think Tony Ferguson has a lot more to fight for since he was supposed to fight Khabib. He's been the interim champion before. I see him becoming the interim champion again and just get that Khabib, I guess, the 6th try they're trying to make it. I see that as my next possibility for the UFC lightweight title.
Yeah, I think Ferguson's going to beat Gaethje too. Ferguson's just on another level from everybody. He is fantastic. And if he loses, Khabib Ferguson could lose some of its luster. So I really hope that he wins this fight. Even though I like Gaethje, he is a great fighter. He's fantastic to watch. Like you said, Ferguson needs to win this fight just so we can get that eventual matchup with Khabib that hopefully one day will happen.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Stevens, Mr. Who the Fook is that guy? Jeremy Stevens. That's what he's known for.
Yeah.
And Greg
he's
Hardy.
He's a great fighter, though.
Hopefully Greg Hardy doesn't get disqualified because that guy, every single time he's fought in the UFC, it seems like he doesn't know the rules.
It's ridiculous. Every time it's just I understand why Dana White keeps putting them on main cards because it sells. But at a certain point, man, like if this guy has another DQ, just throw him out of the UFC. Like he doesn't know the rules. Like, yeah, he's a physical specimen. He's more athletic than pretty much everyone in the UFC. But like at a certain point, man, you got to fight clean. And if he can't get it done, I don't know. I'm done with the Greg Hardy already. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah, we'll see. UFC Saturday night. We'll be watching. We'll be tweeting about it. That's your predictions from Danny D. You got a lock of the year in there too, so that's exciting. So let's move on to the other fighting sport coming on Sunday. We got WWE Money in the Bank, and this one will be emanating from the WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. First time ever. So let's start with our first match. It's the SmackDown Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way 8-man tag. The New Day versus the Miz and Morrison versus, now get a load of these two teams, Pablo, the Forgotten Sons and Lucha House Party. So half this match has no chance of winning this match, in my opinion. Who wins?
I'm going to be honest here. The champions are Miz and Morrison, correct? No, they lost the title. You see that's how far off I am.
It is the New Day.
Them to me, this is too obvious. They're not gonna get the titles back right away. So I think the New Day obviously are gonna retain. You're gonna make them look weak if they win the title and then they drop it right away. So I think this is pretty obvious. The other two teams, they have virtually no shot at winning this.
Speaking of no shot at winning, the next match is the SmackDown's Women's Championship match, where you have Bayley going up against Tamina. So does Tamina walk out champion?
Well, do you want to know something interesting about this? And I'm not sure if I stated this last week, if they were pushing Tamina because of that whole thing that that the Dark Side of the Ring put out about her father and that scandal with Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation, back in the day. But it would not surprise me to see Tamina, who she has no charisma. She's just not very good in the ring. She's not very good to look at. She's just, I don't know. She's kind of just there. Bayley, in my mind, I understand that she's one of the top women in the division, but I feel like she hasn't had many competitors to kind of elevate her game. And with every great heel, you have a great baby face. And that's something that they have not really done a great job at doing. So I don't think that Tamina should win here. And I don't think she is going to win. But would it surprise me? No, because this company likes to do things backwards.
It would surprise me, I'll tell you that, because I think they're really building towards Bayley, Sasha Banks at SummerSlam, wherever that is. To interject real quick, SummerSlam won't be being held. It's looking pretty bleak, like a 0% chance in Boston, like it's supposed to be. Where would you like to see SummerSlam held?
Well, I think the obvious spot, I think Vince should get creative. He should have some fun. He should have SummerSlam like somewhere on a beach setting, somewhere almost like what the UFC wanted to do, have like a fight island. I think it'd be cool if they could just kind of like, even if they have to set it up, just make it up. Just make the background look pleasing. Just a ring surrounded by some sand, just put some palm trees in there. I think that would be awesome. Just kind of create the feeling of a SummerSlam, of a bash at the beach. If it's the biggest party of the summer, have some fun, throw a party, go to the beach. When I think of SummerSlam, I think of party, I think of beach, I think of summer, and I think of fun. And that's something that has not been done in several years with this company. Yeah,
that's what I was just about to say. I think that Vince should get on the phone with Dana White and see if he could rent out Fight Island and have their SummerSlam there. That would be a very interesting thing to see both of them collabing on something to get it done in SummerSlam. And you could have the UFC even promoting some guys that are now in the WWE. So I think that would be a good collaboration.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. Pablo, I can tell you read JD from NY's Twitter with that answer.
Well, I actually did. And you know what's funny? I knew you were going to say, bring up that thing about where they're going to have the pay-per-view, because he's the one who actually brought it to my attention. And I thought that his idea is brilliant. If AEW can have something if they could have a show on a cruise ship, why can't WWE do something where they kind of like rent out a little stage area and they just make it look like sand, make it look like the beach. It doesn't have to be there. Just make it look like it. Just make it look something different, you know?
They spent millions of dollars on the Boneyard match. They could figure out something for a SummerSlam set.
I hope.
Next match, you have the Universal Championship match. It's the champ Braun Strowman going up against the Fiend Bray Wyatt.
Well, this is one of those matches where I don't care about. Number one, Braun Strowman, he should not be the champion. Braun Strowman was not built up. They kind of just gave him the title because of Roman Reigns and whatever's going on with Roman Reigns. From what I hear, they are told not to mention Roman Reigns for some reason. I personally think it's going to somehow play off in a storyline months down the line. But Bray Wyatt, he has not been built up. Bray Wyatt, in my opinion, should not be getting a title shot this quick, because in my mind, he should have been the first in line to get a title shot against Goldberg. So why did this whole thing with John Cena even happen? And if that's the case, if Goldberg squashes Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman squashes Goldberg, and then Bray Wyatt beats Strowman, then that's only going to make him look even worse. So I don't understand what they're doing. Just give the title to Bray Wyatt and just let him run with it. But, you know, like I said with Roman Reigns, whoever wins this title here is ultimately going to be fed to Roman Reigns. So they just have to be careful there.
You see, I really don't know if Roman Reigns will ever be the same in WWE, and that's not his fault, but that's the way WWE operates. Roman Reigns took off time because he had leukemia, and he has 2-month-old twins at home, so he can't risk getting sick. He can't risk bringing that home. But now WWE has been told not to mention his name, not to even put him in video packages. They edited him out of video packages he was in. Even the WrestleMania 31 video package when Seth Rollins cashed in Money in the Bank, they edited him out of that. That is insane. The guy is just at home because he had leukemia. You'd think that they would be a little more understanding, but this is the WWE. Roman Reigns, you don't know. He's the golden goose, but that's
going to end up being a huge storyline.
I don't know, man. Unless that would be blending kayfabe and reality, and I don't know if they're well ready to do that. But I do agree. I think Bray Wyatt's going to win this match. Braun Strowman's a transitional champion. Bray Wyatt will have a long title reign. I think he'll eventually possibly drop it to Roman Reigns, but I wouldn't be so sure. The WWE Championship match, Drew McIntyre, who is having a phenomenal championship run. This guy was built to be the babyface champion, versus Seth Rollins, who is also having a really good heel run. Really disappointing that this match has to take place with no fans. Who's going to win it?
Well, number one, this match, again, should not be happening. I understand Seth Rollins has had a very good run as the Monday Night Messiah, but Seth Rollins also lost at WrestleMania to Kevin Owens. So I think it would make sense if Kevin Owens were the one to get a title shot here. So it doesn't really make sense that he's going after the title. I understand that him and Drew McIntyre do have some history, and they are two guys that Vince loves for he loves for that matter. So I don't think there's any chance that Drew McIntyre loses this title. And if he does lose this title by some stupid, odd reason, Drew McIntyre will never recover and he will be buried because, like I said, if you want to build stars, you need to make them look dominant, you need to make them look like a boss. You need to make them look like, look, I'm the guy and nobody's going to take this from me.
I agree. I think Drew McIntyre needs to be built that way. He could be the next great champion that is up there in the main event for the next 5 years if this run goes right. So I'm rooting for Drew. I think this will be a good match. I think it has potential to be a great match, depending on the way that they have good chemistry, like you said. So I think it could be really good. And then finally, we have both the Money in the Banks. I'll read off who's in the matches real quick. The women's Money in the Bank match is Nia Jax, Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Lacey Evans, Carmella, and Dana Brooke, while the men's Money in the Bank match features AJ Styles, Aleister Black, Rey Mysterio, Daniel Bryan, Otis, and King Corbin. Who's walking away with the briefcases?
Number one, I'm going to give you who I think should win and who I think is going to win because they have no creative direction. Nia Jax should definitely never hold the briefcase. Doesn't make sense for her character. She doesn't need to hold the briefcase. Shayna Baszler won the Women's Royal Rumble. So, wait, no, she didn't. Shayna Baszler was well-positioned to win the title at WrestleMania. Shayna Baszler was once the number one contender for the Women's Championship. So Shayna Baszler needs to kind of have another reason to go after that title again. So Shayna Baszler should win that Money in the Bank briefcase. But Nia Jax, I do get worried. I put her in the same situation as Tamina Snuka, where these two women, nobody really likes them. But, you know, they're very big. They're very, they have a dominant look to them. So I think that WWE, they might go with Nia Jax winning this, which I'm very afraid of. And for the men's match, I think absolutely it should be Aleister Black. But the way that this company has just fallen in love over Baron Corbin, it would not surprise me to see King Corbin win this match and to kind of set up some type of feud between him and Drew McIntyre.
Now, you bring up some interesting points, but I don't foresee Nia Jax becoming Miss Money in the Bank and Baron Corbin becoming a 2-time Money in the Bank ladder match winner. I think that would be bad for business. I think that in the women's match, it's either going to be Shayna Baszler or Asuka. Asuka has been the company's workhorse in the women's division. She's done everything they asked her to do. She's won almost everything but the Money in the Bank ladder match. I think she gets that under her belt this year. And like you said, Aleister Black should 100% win this match. But there is another option who would make a great choice, who I think is going to win. And yes, it is AJ Styles. AJ Styles had a fantastic match with The Undertaker. I think he'll get a huge rub off of it. He was actually speaking out against the company this week when he said that he wishes they didn't squander his return so much from the Boneyard match, so they did more with it. But I think AJ will get that briefcase, and then he'll make a great foil for Drew McIntyre when fans are eventually back in the stands, which could be soon with them filming all their shows in Florida.
Well, I'm going to interject here. Asuka, I understand that the fans love her, but to me, she has just been portrayed as such a joke. Somebody who, yeah, she likes to have a lot of fun, but to me, I can't take her serious. I definitely cannot take her serious going after a world title. So I do hope that Asuka is somebody that they don't have win. And in terms of Aleister Black, when you look at building stars, I think Aleister Black needs to be the next guy in line, the next guy that they put the rocket ship on, and he needs to be one of the guys going after that main strap. That's just my opinion on that.
What are the chances we get another Brock Lesnar run in, steal the briefcase?
Man, Brock Lesnar, man, his time has come and gone, at least 3 or 4 times over. I appreciate all the work that he's done, but in terms of him being the world champion, it should just not be happening right now.
Andrew, Dan, will you be watching Money in the Bank or no?
I tune in.
Well,
to be determined.
I'll let you guys use my my network subscription if necessary.
That would help.
At least the Money in the Bank match, that'll be watchable. That should be interesting. They're going to climb an entire skyscraper. So I don't know how you aren't going to want to see that.
Don't you think it's interesting that AEW is also having this type of match at their pay-per-view?
That is interesting. AEW, they had an awesome show on Wednesday night. So AEW has definitely done the empty arena shows a little better, but WWE has tried to get creative. So we'll see. This is an interesting time in wrestling. Who does this type of match better?
I mean, my money is going to be on AEW, only being because it's going to be an actual match. Money in the Bank, it's going to be kind of a circus. But then again, we don't know. So,
yeah, we'll see. I heard they're planning some booby traps. So I don't know what that could mean.
Here we go.
I'm sure that'll be interesting. Another thing on Sunday is The Last Dance. Episodes 7 and 8 are going to be on this week. One thing from last week's episode I wanted to touch on is that Adidas, how bad did Adidas look passing on Michael Jordan? He wanted to sign with Adidas, and they said no. How bad did Adidas look in this episode?
Well, for Michael, I mean, it obviously worked out. I know he wanted to sign with Adidas, and he, like you saw in The Last Dance, like his parents forced him to go to the Nike meeting because Nike was like a tennis shoe at the time. Like it wasn't even like basketball shoes weren't even thought of. And then to see the amount of money that Michael gets compared to the other guys in the NBA at such a young age was so interesting to see as well. And obviously for Nike, it worked out more than they ever anticipated. I mean, Michael's play, really helped them in that department. And just looking at those shoes, the red shoes, I mean, that he wore his last game of the Garden as a ball. I mean, like, I want to buy a pair of those. I mean, they're over $1,000, but like, I want to buy a pair of those eventually. Those are some sick shoes. Michael really, went in the right direction with Nike over Adidas, I have to say.
Yeah, this documentary has really shed some light on some interesting topics and has given you insight into a lot of cool things. It's been fantastic. I really have enjoyed it. I'm going to be recording the episodes and watching them after Money in the Bank this week. So hopefully I don't get any spoilers, but it's been awesome to at least have that to look forward to every week. But yeah, Adidas, they messed up. They messed up royally by passing on Michael Jordan. And Jordan almost messed up by not taking that Nike meeting. Who knows what the sneaker game would look like if Jordans weren't under the Nike banner?
Well, I mean, definitely Adidas messed up. But then again, when you're talking about billions of dollars, does it really matter if it's Adidas or Nike? Michael Jordan would have made anything when you're talking money is a good decision. So at the end of the day, Michael Jordan came out on top. Now, I honestly think it's awesome what ESPN is doing here with these documentaries, especially The Last Dance that we were talking about right now. I'm also very excited to see, with their new documentaries that they're going to be having on ESPN. They're going to be having something on Doc Holliday. And I personally think that it's very interesting to see kind of a different take of the last days of his life. So I'm very interested to see, I believe it's going to be called Imperfect. And I'm very interested to see another documentary, another series they're going to have. I'm not sure if it's a special on Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. Obviously they had that big thing in the 90s, the massive home run race. I think that's going to be something awesome. And I know with ESPN, they're very great with their production team. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, those should both be great. I'm excited. ESPN, they do a great job with documentaries. You really can't get much better than that. Let's get into our questions to finish up the show. One of the questions was from Mikey Ferro. Who do you have winning the Money in the Bank ladder matches? Just rewind the episode and you'll figure it out. Dave Stolte, another question we already answered. He wanted to know the game we were looking forward to most in the NFL this season. And he said he was circling the Week 17 game between the Buccaneers and the Falcons. He might be the only one circling that game. And our final question comes from a bevy of people. One of them was PK Patel, and he wants to know, would you rather blow a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl or continue to have losing seasons? So
what do you mean by continuing to have losing seasons?
Say you're a fan. I'll use the Redskins as an example. You're a fan of the Redskins. Would you rather have more losing seasons or have that one season you get all the way to the Super Bowl and lose 28-3?
Well, what are we talking losing seasons? Are we talking 5 losing seasons? Are we talking 2 losing seasons? Are we talking 10 losing seasons?
The question wasn't that specific.
Because if you're talking about blowing a giant lead in the Super Bowl, I don't think any team wants to do that. So if you're talking about 3 losing seasons, I'd rather take the 3 losing seasons.
I think I would take the losing seasons. Like, maybe it's because I've never experienced my team ever playing a Super Bowl, but I think if my team finally made it and they blew a 25-point lead in the second half, like, I wouldn't be able to watch football the next year. So
not that this is related to the 23 or 28-3 thing, but you look at the New York Mets and go into that World Series in 2015. You're telling me you'd rather them just lose all the 2010s than go to the World Series?
If they blew a 5-0 lead in Game 7 and lost that series.
Oh my God! Blowing a 5-0 lead in Game 7.
That's the equivalent to that.
If I were a fan of that team, you wouldn't see.
I guess so, but I want to.
Losing in 5 games in the World Series is not losing 28 when you're up 28-3 in the Super Bowl.
There's still great memories going into that that loss. So
there's still great memories for Falcons fans in the NFC Championship game, but like
exactly, I'd rather have that than watching my team just suck.
I agree. I would rather lose you basically think of it as being a fan of the Falcons during that season or being a fan of the Redskins during the last 20 years. I would rather have that memories of going to the Super Bowl and losing, although that is a pretty depressing way to lose, than not having that at all. That 2 weeks leading up to your team being in the Super Bowl is the best feeling ever. You will be the happiest you are probably in your entire life leading up to that game. For 2 weeks, nobody can say shit to you. That was the best as a Giants fan in Super Bowl 42 and 46. I was lucky enough to have my team win twice. It is
Steve.
phenomenal.
But your team won. You know, you weren't excited for 2 weeks. Then you go when you're up 28-3, and then we're gonna win, and then you lose.
Listen, these past couple years, the Giants fan have been absolutely miserable. I would kill for a 28-3 Super Bowl loss as opposed to a 4-12 season of miserableness. That's what it was.
It sounds like a couple people who never experienced a 28-3 loss from their team.
I think if you ask Falcons fans, would you rather have your season and lose in the promised land like that?
What is Dave Stolte's answer to this?
Oh, it was heated. Dave Stolte he chooses the 28-3 loss.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I can see why it would be tough. I can see both sides, but I'm taking the 28-3 loss. But that's all the questions we got. That's all we got for episode 22. Double P Suns are up. Before the score, everybody stay safe. That's all we got.